So we'll get started with installing the VirtualBox guest editions. If you are not running Linux in VirtualBox, or you've already done this, you can skip ahead through this. But I will tell you that the one thing you should get out of this that is going to be important is that if you're not using VirtualBox and following these directions, you'll want to make sure that you have a way to get the files that you'll be creating on your Linux machine off of it and submit them to the Blackboard site. If you're running a Linux desktop computer, you'll probably accessing Blackboard through your browser there anyway, and you'll be able to submit files. Um, it's possible you could probably fire up a browser in your VM and submit files that way, but like I said in the intro, having a shared folder between your host and your VM is probably going to be a pretty handy thing anyway. Um, so installing the guest editions is actually pretty simple. You bring up your VM in the devices menu. There's a choice for insert guest edition CD image. Once that image mounts, a dialog box will pop up asking if you want to run the install, or saying that there's software on there that wants to run automatically. And click the run button. The install will complete and it'll prompt you and you restart your VM. So I'll demo that real quick. So I've got a freshly installed Ubuntu VM here running in VirtualBox. Haven't done anything to it yet. So I've got a freshly installed VirtualBox VM here running Ubuntu. Haven't done anything at all to it yet, so to get started we'll go up to the devices menu, and you can see down at the bottom there's an insert guest edition CD image choice. You select that. In just a second here you see the CD pop up and the dialog asking if we want to run the software, and we do. You'll need to put in your password to get the elevated privileges to install. So, and the install is completed. You may notice in the output there's a line that says the headers for the current running kernel were not found if the following module compilation fails. This could be the reason. You'll also see that the module compilation didn't fail, so if you are running this and you see that pop up, don't worry, everything will complete. You'll also notice that it says you should restart your guest to make sure the new modules are actually used, so you'll want to do that. And as it says at the bottom, press return to close the window, so we'll do that. And then you'll want to restart your VM. And while that's restarting, I'll go over how to set up sharing a folder from your host computer to your VM. You're going to go to the devices menu again. There's a shared folders option, and under that there's an option for shared folder settings. You'll get a dialog box and the typical little interface things. On the right side there's a little folder with a plus. You'll click the folder, and then in the drop down choose other, and then find your documents folder in your home directory, and then share that to the VM. You'll see when you choose the documents folder, it should automatically set the folder name to documents. If it doesn't, you'll want to put that in there, and then you want to make sure the auto mount and make permanent options are selected, and then you'll save those settings, and then you'll want to open a terminal window and add yourself to the new group that has been created, the VBox SF group, and there's the command to do that. I'll demo that as well, and then in theory, based on the documentation, that should mount the directory for you. In my experience, in my VMs, it doesn't always do that, or it hasn't done that for me. So the best way to make sure that it's there, again, is to restart your VM, and then when that comes back up and you log in, your shared folder will be there. So my virtual machine is rebooted and I've logged in, and now that I have the guest editions installed, one of the other benefits is that I can resize the window and the screen in the VM will scale with it. You're not limited to a smaller size. You'll notice the CD image is still mounted, so we'll go ahead and eject that. And then we'll go to the devices menu. Under shared folders, choose shared folder settings, and you can see just a tiny little folder with the plus to add a new shared folder here. So we'll click that, and then in the folder path choose other. It should pop up to your home directory, and then you want to choose your documents folder. Of course, I'm using a MacBook. This should be pretty similar on a Windows machine. There's a home directory for your user, and there's a documents folder under there. So we'll do the same thing. So you choose that, and you can see it sets the folder name to documents for me. And then you want to make sure that auto mount and make permanent are checked. And you click OK and OK, and those are saved. And then, as I said, you want to make sure that you're in the right group to mount that, or to be able to read that folder. So if you bring up a terminal window, use the command ID, and that'll list your current user ID and then all of the groups you're a member of. So the GID is the primary group you're a member of, should be the same as your username, and then these are all the supplementary groups you're a member of, all of the other groups. But you'll notice that the VBox SF group is not one of them. So in order to fix that, we'll use sudo to get the elevated privileges, and then you want to do user mod, and then an A, and then a capital G. So the A says to add this group that you're going to specify. The G says this is a supplementary group. And it's VBox SF, and then your username. Now if we do ID, actually, since I'm logged in and I haven't logged out and logged back in, ID just shows me the groups I'm currently a member of. But if I do ID and my username, it'll show me the groups that the system thinks should be a member of. And you can see that the VBox SF is there now. That won't take effect for the current shell until I log out and log back in. Let's just do a quick check. Use the df command, and you see all the mount points there, and that shared folder did not get mounted. So to make sure, we'll just reboot the VM quick. Okay, so my VM is back up and I've logged in. I'll open a terminal window. And this time if I use the DH command, or the DF command, you can see that there's now a new mount point for /media/sf_documents. You can CD to that directory. And you can see there's the files from my home directory. And if I go to the file browser here and go to computer and media and SF documents, I can see them here as well. So now I'll be able to copy files into and out of that directory to get them to my MacBook to share them on the Blackboard site. Now that we've got that taken care of, I want to touch on a couple of security topics really quickly. The first and probably most important is passwords. Linux systems, Unix systems are multi-user, which means that you have to log in and that you have a password. And on the system, just as with all of the websites you visit and all the social media you use, you'll want to make sure that you're using a unique, strong password for each login that you have. And with the amount of places, the amount of websites and systems that you log into, I know that can seem like a lot. But sharing passwords, using the same password for multiple logins, multiple sites, can be very dangerous, because if somebody were to, say hack a website that you have a login on, say their security isn't all that great, they hack the system, they get a list of passwords, they get your password, and if they're able to figure it out, and you're using that password on multiple different sites, maybe even including, for online banking, then whoever has stolen that password now has access to many more parts of your life. So strong, unique passwords everywhere. And it may be tempting, since you're doing, a different password for every login, to write them all down. That is also not a great idea. Um, you'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised to know how many times I've seen post-it notes with passwords stuck to monitors, or made an attempt to hide them by sticking it to the bottom of a keyboard. And and if you're walking up to somebody's desk and they're not there, and you want to get into their system, say you're not a good person, looking for a post-it note, flipping over the keyboard, or pulling out the top drawer of the desk, those are the really common places those things are written down. So don't do that. To help you, though, there are utilities, and some cross-platform utilities that will store your passwords in an encrypted database. So really, you only have to remember one password. Make it a really good, strong one, but one that you can remember. You remember that one password, and then you have a utility that stores all of the rest of them in encrypted format. There's a utility called KeePassX, and that one is cross-platform. There's an OS X version, a Linux version, and a Windows version, and you can share the passwords across platforms. Personally, I use a utility called 1Password that has Mac, Windows, Android, and iOS versions. There isn't a Linux version, but I spend most of my days working in Linux, but using my MacBook and the terminal there to access everything. And so the 1Password utility works great for me. It will generate secure passwords for you, random secure passwords, and store them, and will automate logging into different websites and keep all your passwords secure for you. So some characteristics of strong passwords. Uh, More characters are better. The longer the password, the harder it is to guess, and the harder it is to break using the utilities that hackers can use to break password files. Um, most sites and most systems now will accept more than 8 character passwords. So 10 or more characters is really where you want to be for security. And if you're using something like 1Password or KeePassX, where you're generating random passwords for yourself, um, you don't really have to worry about remembering a long password in that case. And so, longer passwords are better. And then ideally you want to use a mix of characters. So you want upper and lowercase characters, you want symbols, and you want numbers in it. If you do want to have passwords that are a little easier for you to remember, instead of having them in an encrypted database utility, then using a mnemonic for a phrase is a pretty good way to go. Um, Using dictionary words, even if you substitute in a number or two or a special character or two, dictionary words are bad, bad, bad. The password cracking software is keeps getting better and better. And if it's in the dictionary, even with some special characters thrown in, they're going to be able to get it. So you can see on here, Mustang with an exclamation point and the @ sign for an A is not going to last long against somebody who wants to break your password. But the one above it looks kind of like gibberish. It's not really a dictionary word, but if you look at it, it's the mnemonic for that one is "I'm a little teapot." Um, so that's a bit more secure. It's longer. Uh, it's not a dictionary word. It looks more like gibberish. But if you know the mnemonic for it, then it's easier to remember. And then on top of passwords, you want to give your computer itself some protection, and especially if you're running a system that's connected directly to the internet. There's public access or potentially access directly to it from the internet. You'll want to have some security in place there. You want to make sure that the firewall software is turned on, and all modern operating systems, uh, Linux, OS X, Windows, all of them now come with firewalls already installed. So you want to make sure that that's installed and turned on. And in general, the best policy for your firewall is like a blanket deny incoming, allow outgoing policy, especially for a personal use type of system where you're not running a web server, you're not expecting people to connect to it from outside, to initiate a connection to it. Deny incoming and allow outgoing is a pretty simple and pretty effective policy. So no connections coming into your system will be allowed, but when you're on your computer and going out, anything that you initiate, the traffic coming back in will be allowed. On Linux, the built-in firewall system is called iptables. The GUIs have some nice configuration interfaces for iptables to get that set up, and like I said, setting up the simple deny incoming, allow outgoing policy is pretty straightforward. You can get some pretty complex firewall rules going, and you can dig into it, of course, being Linux, and you can dig into it from the command line and write the config files yourself and get some really really hardcore firewall rules going. In addition to the firewall, you'll also want to make sure that you're running the system updates often. Um, you know, uh, all of the major distributions are continually releasing updates, and especially security updates. You'll want to watch for those especially, and you'll want to apply them. Um, there are times in a business server environment, you especially for critical production systems that need to be up all the time, you want the system updates and you want to get them applied, but you probably don't want to apply them automatically. Um, there are times when due to feature changes or necessary updates to a package, installing it automatically could cause problems on your system. So there's a trade-off there. You don't want to apply it automatically and potentially have an automatic patch, an automatic update, cause your production system to be unreachable. But you do want to get them applied. So that's part of the job of running internet connected systems is watching the release of new security patches, testing them, making sure that your systems will stay up when they're applied, and then getting them applied as soon as possible. And this week there'll be an assignment due. To start, it's pretty simple. The first assignment is really getting you started with using the script utility on your Linux boxes, um, so that you can record sessions that you're doing. So I can see your commands and your output and all that. It saves all of that, everything you type, everything that the the utilities you run and the programs you run output back to you. It does not record password input, so you don't have to worry about that. Those won't show up in the script file. But basically what the script utility does is it starts another shell, a subshell of the one that you're running, and then it captures all of the output, incoming and outgoing output from that session, and saves it to a file that you specify. And then when you exit or Control D to log out of that shell, your script session will stop, the file will be closed and written, and you'll be taken back to your original shell. So it's a really simple command to run. At your command line, you just type script and then the name of the file you want to save all of the data into. Um, so I'll show you quickly how that works. So I've got my Linux VM here, and I've got a terminal window open. I'm going to just take a look at my home directory here. You're doing whatever. I'm going to go into the CS41 directory and look around there. There's nothing there, and this is just running commands and nothing is being recorded. Now, however, if I type script and then I want to save it into the CS41 folder and call it week3.out. So that's going to start another shell. You'll get a little one-line warning that this is starting. Other than that, it won't really look any different. See, so I've got the warning there that says script started and tells me where it's saving everything. So now if I look at my home directory, there's my ls output. If I cd to the CS41 directory and look, you can see it started the week3.out. It's by default it flushes the output of what it's saving on an interval, so it hasn't actually written anything yet, but you can see it's created the file and it's there. So let's go back up a directory to my home directory, and then we'll exit to stop the script shell. And you can see I get another little output there that says script done, file is CS41 week3.out. So I'm going to open another terminal window here. And I'm going to go into the CS41 directory, and I'll look, and you can see now there is content in the week3.out file. So if I use cat to look at that file, you can see that it looks just like a shell session. You can see everything that I did, starting with the warning that the script is starting, the ls and its output, changing directories and changing back. So that's what you'll be doing. I have an assignment to just get that running, run a couple commands, and then take that file, the week3.out file, and upload it as the submission for your assignment. And a quick little demo here, in addition to this, you can see I've got the SF document, the shared folder document for my host computer shared here as well. And now I can use the cp command for copy and copy the week3.out file to the media SF documents Las Positas folder. And if I go to the Finder on my OS X machine, go to my documents directory, go to Las Positas, and you can see now I have the week3.out file there. So that's it for this week. You'll definitely want to do the reading this week. It's chapter 2, and then so that's it for this week. You'll definitely want to do the reading this week, as you've probably noticed. The readings do play into the quizzes pretty heavily. The reading for this week is Chapter 2 in Part 1 of A Practical Guide to Linux Commands on the Safari book site. And the Chapter 2 is titled Getting Started. It covers some login stuff, some command line stuff, and security and passwords and that. There's of course the quiz for this week, and then there is an assignment this week, and the assignment you'll see when it's posted to the Blackboard site. It's a brief little assignment. It gives you a couple lines of instruction. You'll want to get a terminal window on your VM, and you'll run the scripts command to save the output to a file, to save your session to a file, and then I give you a couple 3 tasks to do to save into that script, so I can see that that's all working for you, and then submit that file to the Blackboard site. And then of course the quiz and the assignment are both due by 12:01 a.m. Monday. That's September 7th, and September 7th is Labor Day. We don't really have any special concession for Labor Day since we run, the class runs, Tuesday through Sunday night. So you should have everything submitted before Labor Day anyway. You'll probably want to make special effort this week to make sure that you get it done because it is a holiday weekend. And I just wanted to also say that while I do try to make an effort to read your emails and answer your questions on the weekends, I don't guarantee that I will be able to do that. The weekend is the weekend, and I do have my other career job as a working Linux DevOps systems administrator. Um, but I do love doing this as well, and I do want to get to your questions and answer them. But especially this weekend, being it is a holiday weekend, I may not be getting to your questions over the weekend as I've done in the past. So have fun this week. Have a great Labor Day weekend, and I will talk to you next Tuesday.